Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 13 of the Rewatch podcast presented by the Terrible Video Gamers Club. I'm your host, Tyler Schatz, viewer of the trial by combat between Beric and the Hound. Joining me this fine evening is Stephen Howard,
loser of the trial by combat,
Amanda Howard,
winner of the trial of combat,
and Gary Delaney.
Still believing in the hero of the revolution.
Alright, and unfortunately Nick is out on assignment today. He will not be joining us for the podcast, so we will basically just jump right into Season 3, Episode 5, Kissed by Fire. The IMDb listing here says, Rob's army is falling apart. Jaime reveals the story to Brienne that he has never told anyone. Jon breaks his vows. The Hound is granted his freedom. The Lannisters hatch a new plan. So, I really had, I wrote down some notes on here, but I basically just had 3 points that I want to bring up and talk about. The rest of it, one of them is probably the biggest point of the whole episode, and I think we've been talking about this, alluding to this here. So, it's basically Rob's decision there he makes to kill Lord Karstark there.
Oh my god, yes.
So basically, I just have it written down. Rob's decision. Let's talk. Kill or keep alive, here, basically. Because this is basically, you could point to other things that have happened before in Rob's conquest, basically, towards the south there. But this is probably the one defining moment that you would kind of put a pin and go, okay, everything from here on is basically changed. This changes everything pretty much for him. So to back it up a little bit here, just to kind of refresh everyone what we're talking about here, Rob makes the decision to kill Lord Rickard Karstark because he has gone in and on his own with some of his men, basically, they busted into the prison to kill the 2 Lannister children that they had captured there in cold blood, pretty much. And Rob is very, very upset about this. And basically just decisions get made from here, so I'll just throw this out here. Steven, you look like you're rip-roaring, ready to talk about something here.
Oh, I'm so angry. I'm so angry. Because you're right. Rickard Karstark goes into the cell, just murders the 2 little kids. And yeah, I get being really angry about that. I get that is a war crime, straight up a war crime, and he should probably be held accountable. But in this circumstance where you've already, and I think Rickard Karstark actually says it, you let your mom get away with something just as bad, but she happens to be your mommy, so that's not going to be as bad. She can still go to her father's funeral. She's basically under house arrest. She can see it whatever she wants, lives a pretty comfortable life. Rickard, you're going to get your head chopped off. And just what is going? And I think maybe part of it is caused by the fact that Rickard straight up challenges Rob and says, "Oh, he'll let me go. He needs me. He's a little pansy, just like all the other blah blah blahs." But there's not that many people there to hear him. And Rob, yes, has an issue with leadership right there. He has to mend that relationship between himself and Rickard. And cutting off that guy's head does not mend the relationship. It screws you over so badly. And it's absolutely mind-boggling. And yes, I am apoplectic about it.
I don't know what the fuck that means. No idea. I don't know, I thought that Karstark in previous episodes had shown some sort of silent frustration with Catelyn, but he kind of gave the kid gloves because of the honor that he gave to Ned. But obviously in this I thought maybe it's poor writing. I thought in this episode it was kind of sudden, kind of a 180, but also I was going to ask how it played in the books. And I also specifically wrote down what he said before he died because it was fucking cool. But someone who knows the books better, is this how it goes down in the books? Like, or is it much better? Like,
Pretty sure it does. Tyler, do you remember?
I'm drawing a blank here too. I almost think this is how it goes, but I can't remember either.
Don't remember thinking it was different.
Yeah.
I did think, I don't know. It's kind of, I felt bad for Rob because like I don't think there was after this happened. What do? If you don't do something, it's only gonna disintegrate further. But if you do this, it's really bad too. I would have to say there was many decisions that should have stopped it from getting here.
Fair.
Yeah, I'll absolutely agree. Like there was no right answer for Rob to choose here, but kind of to go back to what Gary was talking about a little bit. This had been slowly escalating kind of throughout some of the earlier episodes. There was that scene where Karstark and Rob were having a conversation there on that hill, and the Karstark was basically just berating Rob like subtly there, like, you're losing the war here, you're like losing kind of your purpose here for everything. And obviously too, like, Rob made the decision to just imprison his mom and not really do anything further with her, even though she committed just as basically heinous of an act of releasing the one like valuable
Literally the
prisoner that they had.
Kingslayer.
The Kingslayer, yeah.
and he, even in his like dying moments, like as he's in chains, he still is trying to plead with like Rob that like the same blood runs through our veins. Like, we are Northmen. Like, this, like, I did what I did, but I don't regret what I did, and you should at least respect me enough to understand that I did what I did, and like, you don't have to agree with it, but you have to fucking accept it. Like, I did it, and I make no regrets, but I think, maybe this is a larger group. Did he think that Rob was just going to accept it?
Oh,
Or did he just poke the bear the way that it happened? He should have said, yeah, I'm sorry I didn't ask you, but I needed this.
No, I actually think this goes back to showing the Northern men cultural tendencies, and what Rickards talks about a lot is vengeance. He wants retribution. He wants his pound of flesh. And in that Northern society, at least from what he's sounding like, I mean, obviously we don't know the cultural, whatevers of the Northern society in Westeros, but it sounds like that is something that is taken as a serious matter. And you can look around that in the rest of the world. There are a lot of blood feuds which are taken as very serious matters. And if you don't respect them, you are going to end up with major problems. And I think this is what Rob did. I think he just... It blows my mind that he would do this, and maybe this is just poor writing or poor planning on, I'll be honest, poor planning on George Martin's fault, but Rob, as someone who grew up in the North, would understand that blood feud is a thing, that Rickard would want his pound of blood, and that you have to give it to him at some kind. Maybe just give him one of the two. It sounds horrible. Give him one of the two kids to kill.
Oh my.
I mean, what else are you gonna do?
Let him wear the one guy's head on his horse for the rest of the battle. I don't know. It just
clearly at this point between Jaime Lannister and then the two Lannister boys should notice that something is severely lacking with his prisoner security.
I think like the guard that
they don't feel they're men of honor.
I was gonna say the guard they had defending the cell, he got killed basically in the scuttle there too as they broke into the cell.
Well, that's a man of Riverrun. That's not a man of the North.
Oh,
throwing shade over there, Gary.
Whatever. I don't know. I think the last note I had was I don't want it to save me. I want it to haunt you to the end of your days.
yes.
And then, like, a second later, he's like, kill me and be cursed.
It's badass.
Like,
Yeah. Kill me and be cursed. You are no king of mine or something.
Yeah.
Like, there's some haunting words to hear.
Yeah. I don't know. I think on a rewatch, I think it could have been it could have been portrayed better. I mean, I didn't like the way it was acted. I don't know. It needed to happen. That's when the story went, but it just wasn't. It was a real like high school musical fucking level of acting.
No, you're
Like-
right. Oh, I'm not even sure it's a level of acting, but I think you're right, and I think it was a high school musical level of writing. I think that in this one circumstance, I think George Martin's creativity let him down, and he was looking to create a conflict. He didn't let it happen organically, and
I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't see anybody break out into song and dance.
If only. Also, I think it's, and it might be
get your head in
different in
the
the
game.
book. Like the way that it's shown on the show, like the last time we had this conflict was before Catelyn's dad died, and it was in like a 30-second scene, and it was a couple episodes ago, and that's, I think, what really made this a difficult thing for me to jump into was that it seemed like it was out of nowhere. I think a little scene before that, maybe to dip your toe and kind of warm you up into like this is the
underlying tension and all that stuff going on.
Yeah, the underlying tension in the room. Like, I think it just sort of it started on the chicken and the egg scenario. It didn't like. I just think some of this stuff, and it's my opinion, I'm sure it's the way the book is written. If it's a little more connective, there's a little more connective tissue. It's easier to jump from story to story.
I don't.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
Sorry.
Steven.
No. You go first. I apologize.
I was going to say, so mine is not really related to what the happenings of the show so much as maybe more like how the show is presented on HBO Max, or basically the viewing platform that you watch it on. They always do like a previous on thing a lot of times that I just end up skipping through. So I kind of wonder sometimes if stuff like that gets covered in there to kind of, like, I remember, because I've watched these seasons so many times beforehand and we've been talking about them here lately, that I remember a lot of this connective stuff and go, okay, yeah, this leads into this then. So I wonder like if that's all in there though, and like the previously on part that kind of helped, because we'll talk about it when we get to the episode further on down the line, but I always remember one specific episode where that previously on part stood out and kind of helped remind me, oh yeah, this person still exists in the world here.
Yeah,
Steven.
and I actually agree with both. I think the show does a better job at the books of doing that. The books don't give you that. The books jump around from character to character. You might pass months from one chapter to the next chapter and not really realize it. The show actually does give you that recap every single time. You're not getting a recap when you hit a new chapter. You're not going to maybe get a recap when you get a new book. And so I think it's following the book a little bit more in terms of how it jumps around, and it makes it a little harder to follow, but it also gives you a lot more plot lines happening at once, which is always going to be harder to follow.
Also in the background, not spoiling anything, but as the show went on, they had a lot more artistic liberties for how long they could tell a story, and I feel like maybe they would have a little more time to give the temperature of the room in later seasons than in this point in the show. But anyway, anyone have any other thoughts on that fun adventure?
Like
Mine was only bad. Steven said, "You gotta get your head in the game," and I said, "Well, Karstark got his head out of the game."
Ah.
I had a random note before this about the conversation with Arya and Gendry. Gendry? I'm fucking up names.
Gendry.
Gendry.
Drake, got it.
Where that conversation ended, and this is only, obviously entertaining on a rewatch, is the conversation ended with the line, "You won't be my family, you'll be my lady." And
why is that weird? Why is that weird, Gary? I don't know why that'd be weird.
I think it's for some
she's
foreshadowing.
13,
If you know that they maybe run into each other again, not spoiling, there's some things like that they run into each other again, and that conversation gets kind of connected on later. So
I did not think about that until you pointed that out.
Oh,
Gary.
no, they said that, and I immediately went, oh my god, and rolled my eyes.
But yes, it's an interesting. Well, it's just an interesting dynamic to see, like, knowing how these characters interact in seasons 6, 7, 8, and then watching them in seasons 1, 2, or 3.
I just think it's such a weird thing because there's such an age gap between them.
Hey, I see no spoilers. No spoilers.
No. I'm just saying, for him to even say that at that point in time, there's such an age gap between them. It's weird. It's weird. If
But
you were,
in his mind-
I don't know how, what is he, 20 or something like that? If you're that old and you're saying that to like a 13-year-old, there should be people watching you. You shouldn't be allowed at public pools.
Well, also to remember, they had like marriages between 12-year-olds.
Yeah,
and,
I know.
Day and age, very different.
This is my modern coming out right now.
Steven
also-
chooses, out of all the things to be upset about, the
This.
age gap between the men and the women
Standing
for Game
pat
of
on this
Thrones.
right
There's
now.
nothing else wrong with the entire series.
No.
This is perfect. This is the only problem.
Well, that and the fact that what's her name still over monkeying around with her dragons.
Daenerys.
What's her name?
Yeah. But I think in the surface level of this, it's really just trying to drive home again that, like, she's a lady and he's just a lowborn Smith's apprentice. Like, he's a nobody. And that's that conversation's trying to tell you, is that as he's a nobody, like, being a member of the Brotherhood Without Banners is like a real opportunity that he can take this skill that he was never respected for and make a difference. And she was always still going to be a lady. Like, no one can take that, like, away from her. So I think that was the tone of the conversation. Anyway, that's
I gotta agree with you there. I gotta agree with you. Like, that's a good point, especially for the modern viewer, because it's easy for us to be like, oh, they can overcome that. It's nothing. It's to be really dismissive of the fact of that gap, but that social gap is a huge, insurmountable one normally. I actually thought about, like, I don't remember what episode it was, way back when Jon Snow first joined the Night's Watch, about how the speech that the bear makes about, it does not matter where you came from. Well, actually, it does. Even there, where they do go by merit, they still were going to give you more preference if you kind of knew what you were doing already, which you would have gotten from the more the nobility took over the leadership positions. That is not an insurmountable social thing, and it's a good thing for us as the viewers to be reminded of, because to us, we're like, so what? She was noble. He's not. Big deal. It's a big deal.
It's not a Disney story.
And the same thing with Hot Pie, who, disappears, is that was, he literally was going to be a member of the Night's Watch. Like, and he got a better opportunity to just be like a baker bitch in a little stable, like, or little inn. Like, that's like, oh my gosh, like, this is much better than being a member of the Night's Watch. Anyway, that's
fair. Well, and I to kind of roll this on a little bit as well. I mean, you say that happens to Hot Pie, but then what happens to Gendry? I mean,
that's next episode, but yep.
Oh shoot! Got him confused in my head. I apologize.
All right.
What was your next point?
Well, we'll jump into my next point then. Sure. So the next point I have is the scene with Stannis Baratheon meeting his wife. Us as the viewers for the first time seeing his wife. I think more up close. I think like she was in the scene where they were burning the 7 idols up on the beach. But yeah, we learned definitely there's some stuff wrong with his wife for sure. And I wanted to point out here too, like, it starts off with Stannis has basically got this, like, so Melisandre, I believe, has left. She has gone on her vision quest to the actual mainland, and Stannis goes in to confess to his wife that he was unfaithful to her, and his wife is just totally accepting of it. Like, it seems like she has bought hook, line, and sinker into the Lord of the Light stuff there.
Yes.
So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Gary, you've got something there for us?
Yeah, I definitely, like, as a rewatch, as your first introduction to her, she definitely drank the Kool-Aid of the Lord of Light. Like, Stannis was for this Lord of Light thing because some priest told him that he was the foreseen king, and he had great power and great blood, and like he was like, yeah, I know I'm a fucking badass. Now this lady tells me I'm a badass. Like, we should hang out with this person more. Whereas his wife just like, yeah, she seems like she's maybe been emotionally destroyed over the years after like having that many, like losing that many children. She's just emotionally destroyed, and she's looking for any beacon of hope to hitch her wagon to. And also just the crazy person who keeps dead bodies. I mean, I held back the inappropriate jokes, but that was just weird.
No, and it's worth noting too that Stannis, the reason why Stannis went there was to apologize to his wife about sleeping with Melisandre and getting her pregnant. And he's like, I'm sorry, I've committed a sin and blah, blah, blah. I don't know if he says it exactly like that. A crime under gods or something. And she's like, oh no, I know, it's fine. She tells me everything. And that's just like, oh, this is really weird. She's broken. She's broken, and I think that you're right. It's the dead children always gonna haunt you. Probably living with Stannis, not the best for your mental stability. And then I honestly wonder when the Red Woman came into their lives, shall we say, if she was immediate comfort or if that also kind of broke her, like 3 strikes and you're out sort of thing.
It's her daughter. That's kind of a stress.
Oh, like, and on a rewatch, speaking of her daughter, like, you can just feel the disdain that she has for her daughter.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of caught that on previous watches of the show, that, like, her daughter is kind of a second-class citizen, but it's really eye-opening on a rewatch to see that, like, from the first second, she only speaks about her daughter with shame and disdain. Like, she does not... Her daughter is in the same kind of vein as, like, Tyrion the Imp. Like, she is of noble blood, and if she was, like, a baker's child, they've been thrown into a fire,
probably.
Yeah, long ago. But, like, yeah. Does it explain in the book, obviously things that aren't well documented, where their daughter lands in the list of whoopses? Like, is she the last thing, or like has there been some before and after? Like,
oh, like if the miscarriages were before or after?
Or both. You know, if it was in the middle, you'd be like, oh, I have a daughter, like, the pipes are working, like, we'll just hold it out and we'll get a son. Or if it was, like, the last time and they're like, we got a kid, like, oh, this is so disappointing. Or if, you know, maybe they weren't always such a, like, so disdainful towards their one child. Anyway, that was just my dark questions of interpersonal, like, family dynamics in a fictional world.
And then, of course, like, the daughter just seems like super sweet, wonderful child. Doesn't deserve that kind of mother.
Yeah, I'll make a clarifying point too. It's the mother who's really got the disdain for the daughter. Stannis actually really loves his daughter. There, you can see.
That's he goes in there. He's looking for his daughter.
Yeah.
Do you think he planned on maybe apologizing to his daughter, like, for cheating on his mom? And
I don't know. I think he's looking for redemption in anywhere he can find it, whether it be his daughter. His wife doesn't want to give him redemption because she doesn't think he's done anything wrong.
And he's
oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, he's definitely without a compass right now. He got back.
That's what happens when you throw him into his compass is an onion.
And then he like clings to the Red Woman, and he like throws his hand like into prison, and he's like, I think he's just without a compass, and maybe he just assumes his daughter will help guide him remind him that he's not a shitty human being.
Yeah,
I
maybe
don't-
his daughter will be useful to getting him to the Iron Throne at some point.
So really, both he and Rob are kind of lost right now in terms of their own compasses.
Ah, that's the simile.
You know, actually, I mean, you say that, and sorry, and it's almost all of the leaders are really kind of lost right now.
The hero of our revolution is doing fine.
Fair enough. The hero of the revolution's doing fine,
Joffrey
and the Tyrells are doing fine.
Tyrell's doing fine. Joffrey, I don't know if in these 2 episodes he's glanced at once. I don't know if he
Are you kidding?
has a speaking line.
Did you see this? Did you see the ending of the second episode?
Yes, but I don't think he has a speaking line in either of the episodes. Is that?
I think that's true. Yes, he does not have a
Yeah.
speaking
Okay.
part.
Wait.
It follows Tyrion, Tywin, Marjorie, Sansa, but like Joffrey is just like the person nobody wants to talk to.
Pull the
Fair
wings
enough.
off the flies.
Yeah.
Ugh. Anyway,
All right, I'll throw this over to Amanda. What do you got for us for this episode, Amanda?
So Brienne and Jamie, Jamie's coming to terms with his and being gone. Put it not much better. And we end up hearing the story of how he got the nickname the Kingslayer. It's kind of a lengthy one. But do you think hearing that, was it good to hear it now? Did it give redemption? Does it not matter? I felt like it was interesting because until now, he has not seemed like a good person. Yet it feels like it's the start of something.
I think there's multiple layers there because as the audience, like I don't know if at any point felt bad for this guy. Like he pushed a kid out a window. He attacked Ned Stark. Like he's just never been portrayed as somebody who you want to root for. And then when they kind of reveal that layer of the onion, lots of onion metaphors this today. It's the realization that like no sane he made the best out of a very shit situation, and he still, even after Ned is dead, he still holds lots of disdain that Ned could not believe that he like Ned only saw the worst in him. Like he just assumed that a Lannister does what a Lannister does. They worm their way to the next day, and that was, I don't know, very revealing. So that's one layer, and the audience, and then there's a show. I think it's also just a sign that he's just broken, and I don't know if he at this point in the episode knows what's going to happen to him. Like he's the Bolton seems like they're gonna be nice to him, and they're gonna they're letting him wash up. Like they're trying to give him at least the moderate amount of dignity of a sworn knight, even though he's a prisoner. They're just treating him as a prisoner, but he's still a sworn knight. And he's just broken, and he doesn't have a hand. And so I think that's all the layers. Like I think he just was sick. He trusted Brienne enough, that he told her that story, because in that bath scene he was like, you're the one I trust. And then a second later he's like, well, yep, that's the look everyone always gives me, of pure disdain. He's like, do you know why you shouldn't disdain me? Because I made the best out of a terrible situation. Anyway, Steven, to you.
I'll add one more layer onto that, and I think it's kind of a thematic switching of every single role that you see. You loved Rob. Now you're going, what is Rob doing? You hated Jamie. Now you're like, this Jamie guy might be it. It feels like so many of these characters are having these dramatic reversals. I believe it's in this episode that Jon Snow has his you-know-nothing moment. Oh, sorry, just we got a different thing there. But every single character is having dramatic reversals at this point in time, at this juncture in this show, and this is really Jaime's. And I wonder if he really cares about anyone knowing this story. I think I wonder that he just thought that she might trust him in terms of believing him. I don't think he cares about people knowing the story. I just don't think he thinks anyone will believe him. They're all going the way of Richard Stark, exactly like you say. He doesn't think anyone's going to believe him.
I would add too here, kind of like the role reversal of like shining a different light on Ned Stark, who from all of season 1, other than his naivete that got him killed in the end, there he was always this honorable person, and to kind of hear this that he may have just went out and been like, oh yeah, Jaime did this, he's guilty, but he needs to be kind of shamed and everything like that. And then I like the part there of like what the way that bit ends there is Jaime's kind of getting ready to pass out basically in there, and Brienne grabs him and yells out, the Kingslayer needs help, come help the Kingslayer. And Jaime says, no, my name is Jaime, which is just kind of like, again, showing he's probably like trying to let go of all of these demons of, he lost his sword hand. He lost basically who he is as a person. So now he's trying to let go of everything else and kind of say, I am not the Kingslayer. I am Jaime Lannister.
Yeah, I do think it's an interesting view of Ned Stark because we've viewed him as he's a good guy, he's honorable. Maybe he looks at the world as a little much too black and white, and when he does see something, maybe it's easier for him to see everyone as evil and bad rather than complications or the onion layers. He is a good metaphor.
I just had a real fun metaphor that I just realized. Jaime was the hero of the revolution last time. Boom. Mic drop. Because Jaime thought he was on your side, and then he stabs you in the back. So, anyway.
He only saved all of King's Landing from burning a horrible death of the wildfire.
As I'm saying, he's a hero of the revolution.
That's probably what the that other kid is going to turn out to be as well, almost certainly.
Exactly who he's modeling his behavior after.
Yeah.
I do find it interesting to show that Jaime's got his own version of a moral compass. He doesn't necessarily do things because he gives a damn what anyone else will think or do. Sometimes he does have his own little idea of a compass and doing things. Definitely flawed.
Agreed.
Well, do you think he was always that way? That he didn't give a crap? Or, like, the fact that he got branded with this, in his, 20s or 30s, being the Kingslayer, that's all they know him for. Like, up to that point, he, was an up-and-coming, great swordsman. And then he, got the honor of becoming a King's Guard, which is a great honor. And then people just, slam the door on his honor by saying, well, now you're the Kingslayer. So, why, I'm sure up to that point, he probably was like, oh, you think I'm beautiful? You think I'm a great swordsman? Oh, my. I am.
Oh, my.
Oh, my.
I will say, I think you are on the right track there. I think that he was. You don't try to save everyone at your own risk if you are not in some way, shape, or fashion at least slightly idealistic. And I think that he paid dearly for that decision. And I think after that, he probably started going, it doesn't even matter. I'm gonna push kids out of towers. It don't matter. I'm the Kingslayer.
He started becoming the demon that people thought he was.
Or at least maybe not become the demon, but maybe so much just not care about the idealistic side. Just do what he wants.
Determined his father was real successful at being a dick, so why not just be a dick? Anyway.
Do you have anything else for us, Amanda?
Oh, that was the big one for me.
All right, you stole mine too, so that was my number 3 there. Gary, what do you got for us?
I have that. I suck at people's names. The Lord of Light gentleman was resurrected 6 times, and they go into detail. And I think it's in the next episode where they dwell on a little more. But it was like, I think supposed to be like just a real like kick in the face of like, it's a real intense fight that like while the Hound's shield is on fire, like you hear everyone in the crowd say, judge him, judge him, judge him. And then he comes back and he like, the gentleman's literally sword on fire. Who knows? Hot metal, not the strongest alloy. It just slices through it. And like he's still like broken on the ground, and Arya's trying to stab him, and then he stays up, and I was like, oh, this guy that I just like cut through is still alive. Like what the hell? Like so, and also finding out he got revived 6 times, like just. And for the audience, it's like, what the hell? Like, because up to this point, I think you had the weird Melisandre demon baby ghost thing, and that was scary as hell, and you just think it's all evil, and then this guy just revives him, and you're just like, oh. Anyway, crazy cool magic stuff.
I think that one of the other things... Oh, sorry.
Nope, all you, Steven.
I was going to say one of the other things is this might be the first time that we see a character who you think, oh my god, they're going to die. And they look like they die, and then they actually don't die. Everyone else, that's not a Game of Thrones thing. They look like they're going to die. They look like they did die. They did die.
So the one point I wanted to kind of ask here, and there's not really much of a question we can answer just yet here, but be thinking about this, putting a pin in this. Was the Hound actually guilty then? Because he was basically in trial by combat for, I think there was like a slaughter at some village or something like that. I can't remember. And
The Butcher's Boy.
And killing the Butcher's Boy. So did the Hound actually do that? And again, that's not really something we can answer quite yet, because I think the Lord of Light stuff comes into play a little bit more down the road to kind of explain maybe what's going on. But Steven, if you wanted to take your crack at it there, it looks like you got...
I think the Butcher Boy is living a good life down the stream. He doesn't even know this war is happening. He's living such a great time. Hot Pie is going to come join him. They're going to have a butchery and a bakery. It's going to be a great old time. The Hound was innocent of all measures. If the sword don't fit, you must acquit.
Here's a better question. As Thoros of Myr has revived multiple times, was the Butcher's Boy... Was I the wrong person?
Beric was the one who was revived.
Eric Dondarrion. Okay. Was the Butcher's Boy secretly like someone who would have ruined the revolution or changed the dynamic of the whole story? Because if the Butcher's Boy didn't die, like Lady would still be alive, Lemuria would still be around, like then there would be 2 goddamn direwolves in King's Landing, and like when Ned goes into the throne room with a crap load of men behind him and like on a fucking stick and says, I don't think he's really a Baratheon. You know, 2 fucking direwolves can probably break through a whole fucking crew of people pretty goddamn quick.
I don't think the direwolves were that big by then, Gary, so I don't know if that would have really helped.
Well, just angry puppies. Just, like
Big angry puppies.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my 10-cent theory, is that maybe the Butcher's Boy was secretly the villain.
Ooh.
Yeah, the
Ooh.
villain of the entire series, it all boils down to the Butcher's Boy.
Ooh. I like this theory. This is a theory I can get behind.
Like, that's when the show goes that's when think about it, all the wheels get set in motion, the Butcher's Boy. Also, what if he's not dead? What if he's just hanging over the side of the horse? Maybe he gets set free. You never get confirmed. Ned's just like, do you kill the butcher's boy? He's like, yes, he ran. And he just gallops off and he says, hey, kid, go back to the north and don't tell anyone. Go visit my brother, Mr. Clegane. He's a super nice guy. He'll give you
killing
food
him
and water.
by proxy.
Yeah, he's a super nice guy. Anyway,
What else?
I do not think he's guilty. I think he was just yeah. He also doesn't have a very good past with fire, so he's already been punished enough by fire in his life. I had some notes about in the Daenerys storyline, the two gentlemen, Sir Barristan Selmy and Jorah, were talking about their previous battles and how, and I think it's supposed to, start trying to explain that these two really do respect one another, but they don't trust one another. And it's interesting. Also, the introduction of Grey Worm, which I think is a real, I don't know, kind of a lightning rod moment that, this guy definitely drank the Kool-Aid. He's definitely 100% in with, this Daenerys lady. Because before, he was just, a slave taken from his family, turned into a lethal murderer. And then now he's free, and now he can be a lethal murderer of his own right. So, am I incorrect? He is
no longer a killer for hire, now a contract
trained
killer
assassin
with a contract.
With a contract, just a trained killer, just following a pretty lady. I mean, you get, a million dudes who just don't have anything else to live for. They'll just follow the pretty lady. That's really sexist. I take that back. Anyway,
I don't think I've ever heard Gary take back a line like that.
I think the line that I normally jump over, I think I jumped over an invisible line that I didn't even know was there.
We called the hero of the revolution, but in this case, you decided there was a line.
I just determined there was a little sexist. I can live with, standing behind a murderer and a torturer. I just don't think I can stand behind a sexist statement like
I am
that.
pretty sure there was a line out there, I can excuse this, this, and this, but I draw the line at this.
Sexism is too far for Gary. We aren't going there.
Anyway. The last note I had was about Tywin telling his children that they needed to be married, and they were disappointments. All in one conversation. Hey, this is what our family needs of you. Because we can't have the Tyrells having Sansa Stark, we need to bring her into the fold. And also, I need to, take the other Tyrell out of the picture, so now he can be kind of extinguished from close range. And that he even when they detest, they are a disappointment. One of them is a a filthy whoremonger, and the other one, has some accusations that at that point in private, he fully acknowledges that those accusations exist. You just need to squash them. And the further she is from King's Landing and from Castle Casterly Rock, the less those accusations can hurt the family name.
All right, so I want to start off by saying, is this not a normal conversation for you guys either? You just don't get told that you have to get married and that you're disappointments to your parents? Because
I
I
mean,
mean, is this?
being a dis-
It's not a
being a
thing.
dis-
Okay, well, I'll
being a
continue there.
disappointment's
It's
really
not.
par
It's
for the course
definitely
for
not
me.
something for me either. I don't know what
Steven,
you're
are
talking
you
about.
saying that you were told us?
2 for 2.
Anyways.
I'm 2 for 2. I have been told that that when I moved in with my wife, I needed to shit or get off the pot by my father. Like, moving in with a gal is not acceptable. The relationship needs to go somewhere. So I have been told that I need to get married. And I have been told I'm a disappointment. So I think I'm 2 for 2 on this one.
All right. I was really meaning that as a self-deprecating joke, but thank you for taking that, Gary.
Winning.
What I was going to say is this also really hammers in the idea that up to now, really, there's a lot of people, both Tyrion and Cersei, think they can have love and that they can marry for love and they can be with someone else for love. And that's not the case in everyday society in the Westeros. You get married to a person to advance your family's interests or to get money, whatever it happens to be. And they're not used to that. They are, to be 100% honest, really kind of spoiled, both of them. It's insane that when it comes down to it and they go, well, we are going to marry you off to better the interests of House Lannister, they're like, oh, not me. What did you just do to your son? What did you just do to your, like, everyone around you? That's happening, but no, not me. It's so weird that's their come to Jesus moment.
Tyrion just assumes that he's gonna get to move back to the back, because Tyrion in a previous episode wanted to go to the forefront of the family and be the Lord of Casterly Rock, and then he got told, like, you're much fucking below that. So he just assumed he accepted he had to fade into the background, and now he was told that he needed to marry someone probably half his age, for some land, like, and so he genuinely in every interaction has shown sympathy for Sansa. Going back to the first introduction between the two, while Joffrey is sitting there, he says, I'm sorry to hear about your father. And Joffrey's like, what the fuck? Like, he's a traitor. And it's like, well, it's still, like, that's still her dad. So, Tyrion is in general nice and kind to her, and he just thinks this is one step too far. Like Tyrion was completely fine. Like, he thinks that Sansa deserves to marry a Tyrell because she's had a pretty shit go of life last couple years. So yeah, I think he just thought it was cruel. And Cersei just thought, like, she says, swords, not again. I ready to marry one dude. Like, can't I just be done and go back to Casterly Rock and just be an angry old woman? Or she still thinks she's going to be able to continue pulling the strings in a different manner around. Like, she thinks that's her value, is being a manipulator around King's Landing, but that's not where Tywin sees her value. Tywin just sees her value as a broodmaid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, was it like this episode or broodmare? But like 2 episodes ago or 3 episodes ago, Tywin straight up tells her, "You're not half as smart as you think you are," and she thinks she is clever. She is the sharpest point. So I think you're right. That's she sees herself as pulling the strings behind this. She's the only one that can keep it all together. And Tywin's like, you're useless here. You're worse than useless. You're making a mess of things.
Do you think that, as a story goes, that these repetitive conversations between Tywin and his children is to sort of tear them down and, like, sort of demean them of where they're actually playing the Game of Thrones? Or do you think, as a narrative element, it's to try to explain that these characters in early seasons who are to be feared, like just have to bow down to this dad that wasn't a main character for the first couple seasons. Like how powerful is Tywin? Like Cersei was running the game in King's Landing, and like he is much more playing the Game of Thrones than her. And Tyrion was like a very smart intellectual man, but Tywin just is like, I'm like just totally above his game.
I think that I definitely think there's a narrative element of there's always someone bigger than you. There's always bigger fish in the pond. But I also think it's genuinely Tywin is just a dick. He's just a mean person, and he might be smart. He might know what he's doing, and he might mean the best. He's still an asshole.
He means the best.
I honestly think he does. I think he has the best interest of his house in his mind. Not necessarily his children, but his house. And to him, his house includes his children, his grandchildren, his grandchildren's grandchildren. He's thinking down the line.
Anyway, that was all the items I had for this episode.
All right. Steven, what do you got?
So I have one quick thing, and that's in the trial by combat in the beginning of this episode. I'll be very honest, I didn't like it. It was cut so badly, you couldn't tell what was happening. It just went from one slash to another slash. You didn't know where they were in the cave. You had no idea what the respective areas of the cave were. It was just a very... it was a very hard to follow fight, and someone was winning if they were winning, they were losing if they were losing, and there was no really narrative tell to the fight. There were like I said, there were too many cuts. It wasn't a good fight, and it wasn't up to the quality of Game of Thrones. And I didn't know if that was just because they were in a cave and they didn't know exactly how to do it, which doesn't make sense to me because fights have been fought in caves before and they've been shown on TV. Or I don't know.
I guess I didn't even thought about that. It was really not inspiring fight choreography, but I guess, is there other places in Game of Thrones where you feel like there is great fight choreography? I know that there's, not spoiling anything, trying not to, there's a fight with the Viper later seasons, and that's very much a narrative fight, but I would question on the larger scale, does Game of Thrones have like good fight choreography? Like, that's just, I don't think that's where they spent their money. I don't think they have.
Literally thought of the same fight, Gary, as soon as you started saying it. Don't know now that I'm trying to think about it, because most of it's not, you don't see a lot of one-on-one, and when you do, it seems kind of slow and exaggerated.
Ned and Jamie have a sword fight. And then I'm sure that the one with the moon door.
Yep.
Those were, and so they were. I guess in all of them, there were really inspiring fights. They like sort of stage fighting. Like, it was not.
Yeah.
They're playing to the camera or playing to the audience. Like, they weren't.
Interesting. We'll have to keep an eye on that going forward.
Yeah, I actually didn't think about that. I almost want to go back and rewatch the other stuff, but yeah, and I'm gonna really keep an eye on that more often now. This was just one that struck me in the face. I hadn't really thought to pay attention to the other ones.
I think it was an interesting fight because the gentleman had fire.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
and obviously
cool.
That's something that, well, and it's fucking cool, but yeah. It's something that the Hound doesn't like fire, and so I think they built it as if, like, I don't think they fully played on that narrative in the fight. That, like, he ran away from a battle at King's Landing. He gave up his role in the Kingsguard because he hates fire that much. And I don't think they played on it. His shield was on fire, and on a rewatch, I just assumed he threw the shield. He keeps a flaming shield on his arm the entire time. It's just like, that doesn't make sense. Like, if he really, really... I think he would go punch a dude on the side, steal their shield, in lieu of holding a flaming shield. Anyway, Tyler.
So I'm going to completely disagree with you about that. there are moments that if you were watching the Hound close enough, you see there is the panic in his eyes that he's dealing with a shield that's on fire. He can't get the shield off. Like there's a scene after the battle's over, he's sitting there like just smashing the shield or basically waving his arm trying to show like he can't get the thing off. So like during the middle of a battle where you're fighting for your life there, I think he probably was making the conscious decision there to go, okay, I have this flaming thing on my arm. I don't like it, but if I need to keep it there in order to keep my life, I'm going to, basically suffer through it for a little bit. And as far as the fighting choreography goes, I can't really speak much for that because I don't really, I guess, pay attention too much to that. It was more, to me, it was more about the story being told of the Hound to stand trial for, these crimes that he's being accused of, and then they fight. Obviously, could it have been maybe better? I don't know, but then you might end up with episode 3's 45-minute long lightsaber duel there or something. I don't know.
I guess I didn't pay enough attention when the gentleman lights the sword on fire. Is it oil or is it assumed he does it with wizard magic? I feel like in the first time you see Heart Ripper, what's Stannis' sword?
Oh, I don't remember.
Fire. Lightbringer. Thank you.
Yeah.
First time you see Lightbringer, it looks like it's oil on the sword. But I feel like, not spoiling, next time you see Lightbringer, it looks like goddamn lightsaber magic.
When the heck do you see Stannis' sword again? Okay. I think I'm pointing that out now, but I thought like the book has a completely different version of Stannis' sword there that they really talk about there, which we'll talk about once they get to a different part further on there. But as far as like Barrack's sword, I'm pretty for sure you're just supposed to be believing that it's the magic of the Red God there.
So he just waves his hand over the blade and fire kind of. That's what I just didn't know. Like it's not very well. I feel like if it was truly wizard magic, it could have been done in a better narrative manner. To be like, I've got fucking wizard magic that lights swords on fire. But
I wasn't too concerned about that, but I will go to your point, Tyler. I do think you could do the element of the narrative aspect of this fight while doing it in a better cut, while doing it in a better way of, I guess, being shown, because it's really jumpy. If you're trying to watch what's actually happening in the fight and you're not just kind of going, ooh, fire sword, it takes away from it because you can't figure out what's happening. And it's jump to jump to jump to jump.
I'd probably completely agree with you. It's just, for me personally as a viewer, I've never been one of those people to kind of like sit down and completely analyze scene composition of stuff like that before. I was just kind of watching a lot of stuff. I mean, obviously I could probably think of some terrible stuff in the past, but really that's never been my focus watching stuff. There's
ever seen Transformers?
You mean Explosion in the movie?
Transformers was a fantastic movie, Gary. I love explosions. I love Michael Bay.
God, you couldn't see a full Transformer in like maybe more than 2 minutes of a first Transformers movie. It's just jump cuts of like shit moving. Yeah. Anyway, it's just an opinion. What people watch shows for is a little different, whether you watch it for the narrative aspect or just looking at the cinematography, like, which sometimes Game of Thrones like just kicks the fucking door down, but sometimes it doesn't. The end of the next episode definitely kicks the fucking door down for cinematography.
And then, real quick, the only other thing I had about this episode was just the other part with Tyrion and with the Queen of Thorns, where the Queen of Thorns doesn't so much haggle with Tyrion as tells him exactly what's going to happen. And it is a very... You're used to thinking as Tyrion as this master negotiator, super smart dude, and just has his ass handed to him by the Queen of Thorns. And it is a delight to watch.
I think that scene is also to, I guess, give a different portrait on how much the queen, the Lady of Thorns knows. She knew exactly how many long swordsmen, how many, like, all of the troops. She knew exactly how much supplies they brought to King's Landing. Like, she knows, because she's dealing with the Lannisters and she's dealing with the crown, she knows that what she's given, she doesn't want to give it for free. Like, she wants that if ever there's a question, like, not only do we want to install my granddaughter as queen, like, we would like to be a little closer to the inner circle. Like,
Yeah.
because, like,
Keeping your city from starving for the winter.
but I think, yeah, it's definitely a very sneaky way of saying, like, this lady's not just somebody who can finagle with romance and way to a man's heart and how dumb men are. Like, she knows her shit. And
For all that, she doesn't just turn him down, though. I mean, it sounds like she's telling him basically no, and then at the end she goes, "Very well, we'll pay for half." Where Tyrion, which all he said was literally like, "My lady."
like,
So-
and I think she went into that conversation knowing that she was going to pay half, but she was going to make Tyrion sweat for it, and she wasn't going to let Tyrion forget that, like, she did him a solid, because at the end he's like, "Oh yeah, totally, like, that's totally fine." Like, just, I think, playing mind games with Tyrion, because Tyrion, like, she knows Tyrion's out of his fucking depth when he's playing a bookkeeper, and she says, like, "I expected so much more of you as a whoremonger, and instead I find you're just a glorified bookkeeper." Like,
Yeah,
she understands it's not his character. And
I
think she was also like taking his measure too. And not necessarily, I mean, she said, "Imagine my disappointment when I find a browbeaten bookkeeper," but like, also like, she's taking his measure. She's seeing what kind of person she's dealing with. It's a much different conversation than she had with Tywin before that.
I wonder if it's something about taking the measure of Tywin, because I don't know if up to that point you get a lot of her interactions with Cersei. She hasn't technically been introduced to Jaime, but it's sort of to take, because I'm sure in, like, as with previous scenes, you realize that these are the leaders of two great houses, and so she needs to size up what the Lannisters are bringing to, like, the party, because even though Tyrion is just a glorified bookkeeper, like, that's still onus or power in the camp of the Lannisters. So, like, she's, just sizing them up. Anyway, good.
go
good
back to my
fucking
original
conversation.
point. The Queen of Thorns is freaking awesome.
Yes. Definitely well written, definitely well acted. Like,
Yeah.
that lady is dynamite. Like, so, anybody got anything else for this episode? We can move over. Are we in the next episode?
No,
We
not
are
yet.
now going to be transitioning to the next episode, Gary.
It's the climb.
Yes, as Steven
Keith Gary.
so eloquently sang there. Episode 6, The Climb. Jon and the wildlings scale the wall. The Brotherhood sells Gendry to Melisandre. Robb does what he can to win back the Freys. Tyrion tells Sansa about their engagement. So I didn't really take too many notes on this episode. It was just kind of like a lot of stuff was just kind of happening, but didn't feel like too much major stuff. So I got one part starred here, and then I'll go to my actual question here. The one part starred here is about the prophecy that Melisandre read to Arya there about how she sees a bunch of eyes within her that she will close forever. One set of brown, one set of blue, and then one set of green. We're not going to talk about this now here, but it comes up later on, and there's just so much to talk about how it is just so dumb. I'm just going to say that right now, and it's just such a dumb line.
I don't think it's dumb. I think it's just a general throw about what you know at this point.
Actually, I take that back. It's not dumb. It's what they attach to it that is really dumb. That's the part.
And is it what they attach to it, or is it what the audience, like, speaking of the general audience of the show as it grew bigger, like the stupid things people read into, and that line, without ruining anything, that line people read into way too much. There's a throwaway line.
No, I think people went. We'll talk about this here when we get to that part of the show here, but like I think they use that line. The writers, the showrunners use that line to go write themselves out of a hole they dug themselves into. Anyways, to actually come back to this episode here, the one part I want to talk about here is basically the ending here of Varys and Baelish in the throne room talking, again, having one of their great conversations with one another. And we get the classic line from Baelish there that chaos is a ladder. Some people don't ever make the climb. Some people choose not ever to make the climb. And the climb is all there is basically to the struggle that they're in here. And I cannot say enough how great of a just conversation it is between the two, because it's Varys and Baelish kind of poking at one another to say, kind of, oh, my plan backfired this time, but you picked it up over here, or I got your plan over there, and then your stuff was thwarted. And we later find out, too, an important character was kind of killed because of actions from Varys there, where we get to see Gary's favorite character show back up again with his crossbow in hand, having done the deed to kill, I don't remember what her name is, Ross? She has been put up basically by Baelish as bounty for Joffrey to kill, basically, because Baelish knew that she was leaking secrets to Varys there. And just the whole speech that Baelish gives there is just such a great reminder of his drive and determination, basically. Like, he is eyeing for the throne, and he will rule over the ashes if he must, basically.
Honestly, I thought it was just as you're mentioning. Honestly, I think the line about the lady is just him twisting the dagger and pointing out that, like, I'm winning. And fun fact, that thing that you thought you had on me, she's dead. Suck it. Like, I'm winning. Like, I have everything in the win column, and the one thing you thought you had on me, it's gone.
Well, that's the entire point of their conversation, though, is they're just they're almost one-upping each other. They're having fun at it. And that's, I think, goes back to what Varys said and what Tyler just alluded to as well. Varys said, no, I actually very much enjoy Littlefinger. It's just that he would be king of the ash, or he would see this world burn if he could be king of the ashes. And they are enjoying that fight right there. They are enjoying the one-upping each other. They're having fun.
I had this as a primary question, but it gets kind of in the dark corners of what happens to the lady. And it goes back into a previous conversation that Baelish had with that same person that said sometimes men like to do terrible things, like one like amputees, and if you don't, and I think it's the same, if you don't make them happy, like, I'll give you to someone who fuck corpses. Like, that's and they use the same language. I can't remember what the line is.
She was a bad investment.
Bad
and I found someone who was able to. Sorry.
That's the exact words that he says to her about, like, I don't like bad investments. So clean yourself up, and we'll start again tomorrow. That was when I think the babies got killed in the brothel.
Yes.
However, my bigger question was, going into the dark side, what did Joffrey do to her? Did he rape her? Did he just torture her? And he's like someone who wanted to torture, or did he just want to commit cold-blooded murder? Like, what was the transaction? Or did they have sex and then he, like, tied her up and then killed her? Like,
I'll be very honest, Gary. I think I feel like it's fairly obvious, at least to me, that she was brought in there, put up as a target, and it was allowed to have Joffrey to torture her. to death or torture her to whatever extent he wanted to do. I don't think Joffrey expresses sexual cravings. I don't think Joffrey expresses anything besides a want to hurt people. And that is
torture. That was what it was. It wasn't
Yes.
just like cold-blooded murder. It was just straight up torture.
He could do murder. He could do murder whenever he wants. I mean, it's torture that he wants, and he's shown that before. Your best buddy has shown to his wife to be, hey, you want me to show you the torture chambers? Like,
But I think it's something about it that it has to be done in private because they want to destroy the illusion that he's anything like the Mad King, that he would like torture someone in the throne room in front of everyone as like a sign of his power. Like that's how he does torture, is he does it in private versus doing his public execution. Anyway, Tyler disagrees with me and he has a point, I guess.
I would say it is he just wants torture. He enjoys the suffering of other people, and if you pay somewhat attention to the pan up of basically her body basically hanging there on the bedroom, you see there are multiple arrows basically in her. So he took his time with basically we're assuming he probably took time there because I don't think, I mean, he can reload his crossbow somewhat quickly there, but still he shot multiple arrows into her there, so he obviously was enjoying himself there enough. And again, I agree with Steven. It wasn't sexual in nature at all. He is just, torture is what he enjoys.
Okay, that was my general question, is like it, and obviously you guys answered it, like you didn't think it was sexual at all. It was just torture. Like, okay. Yeah, you can go on to your next point. Sorry, that was just my curiosity on that.
I'll throw it over to Steven here for some of his questionings for this episode.
I guess the big thing for me there were two big points for me in this episode. One of them, I know that you'll get to it, and I know that you have a lot more probably like for it than I do, so I will not bring up this point. The other one is the Rob strikes a new agreement with the phrase, and he is sitting over a table and he goes, I have a brilliant idea. I'm going to ally with the people who I betrayed. Ho ho! And there are two really kind of inbredish looking negotiators, obviously sons of Walder Frey, that come to negotiate, and they end up basically selling Edmure's hand in marriage to another daughter of Walder Frey for Walder Frey's troops. And one of the things that is hammered out during that discussion as well is that wedding will take place quickly. It's going to happen fast, and because Walder Frey doesn't want to have another situation like Robb did and run off on him. And I think something notable is that you don't actually see Walder Frey in these negotiations. It's only his two sons, two bastards, I don't know what they are. But
Walder Frey left the walls. He might die. Like, he's pointed out to be very frailly. Also, like, the amount of people, speaking of like playing the Game of Thrones, like the number of children he has who would gladly plot to kill him on the road would be numerous.
Sure, but it is mentioned during those negotiations that Walder Frey is not there. And I think the negotiators even say at one point, well, how long can the old man, basically hang on? Something to that extent. But it's a big thing. It is he lost all of the Karstarks because Robb's become an idiot. And this is his big move to get back a massive military is to ally with the Freys. And I guess I find it weird to try to ally with someone who you've already betrayed, and maybe potentially dumb, who knows. I also find it weird that he has apparently a military that can replace the Karstarks. I mean, I thought the only reason that the Freys were so powerful is because they owned that basic. It was the only bridge over, I forget where it is, but the 2 towers that own the bridge.
Crossing?
Until
Twins.
what?
The twins.
Yeah, the twins. But there's no really indication that he has this major military he can send out that's going to replace the entire Karstark military, but apparently he does.
Yeah, and this is all formed by Rob's great master plan that he's going to go take on Casterly Rock there, since pretty much that should be the seat of that's the seat of power of the Lannisters that should now be somewhat empty with everyone in King's Landing there. But obviously, yeah, too, like, yeah, I've got the brilliant idea of I'm going to go replace my loyal army with the army of the Lord who I shunned, basically, when I followed my heart instead of following my honor and oath there. Brilliant idea.
It might also just be a sign of how few people he has to talk to about war strategy, that he talks about war strategy with his wife, and his wife is the only person that hears this great war strategy, and it never says that he checks with anyone else.
I kind of wonder if this decision's going to color the wedding of Edmure when that happens.
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about there. It's going to be a pretty... I think it'll be an uneventful wedding. It's but you're right, and his major, because he has 2 strategies that he has to think about there. One of them, withdraw to the north or move on Casterly Rock. And I gotta be very honest, I don't know what he gets by taking Casterly Rock. Sure, he pisses off the Lannisters, but the Lannisters are now allied with the Tyrells. He takes Casterly Rock. He's trapped behind lines, basically, with his army. He's playing nuisance, yeah, sure, I guess, but to what end? He's basically, you know what he's doing? He's doing exactly what, what's his name did to, Iron Islands dude. I forget his name.
Theon?
Theon.
Greyjoy?
What Theon did to Winterfell.
Yeah. Not a great plan.
No. I honestly think he should probably have just moved back to the north. I mean, at this point, call it a campaigning season. Let them come at you. I don't understand, and I think I mentioned this when we first started talking as well. I don't understand why he's still trying to take the fight to the Lannisters. He doesn't need to beat the Lannisters. He needs to not lose. It's a big difference.
Yeah. Steven, you got any other points?
No, those were the big things for me.
Gary, what do you got for us?
I made note. It's kind of the early part of the episode where you check in with Sam, and he talks about the wall, and I think it's just sort of maybe it's sort of an introductory conversation between, him and I forgot the gal's name. Gilly, about how that they're at a very different class or intellectual level, because he's talking about the wall and how it weeps and how it's 400 feet tall, and she's like, I don't believe you, like that seems like you're you're making this up, but she knew how to make a fire and he didn't, and sort of revealing that he has never probably built his own fire before in his life because he had servants. And yeah, he talks about the wall, and I think you could just see the look that her eyes just glaze over, and she's like, I want to be warm. And he's talking about like, oh, when we get there, like this person sings and there's a fire, and this like, these people have very different priorities. Anyway, Steven?
Oh, you're right. It's a very, she's very practical smart or street smart. He's very book smart. It's very different types of intelligences, but I think it does a good job to kind of show that he's not. We were used to thinking of him as a super genius, and in some ways he is. In other ways, he's just a bumbling fool, and she, in fact, is much more intelligent than he is, and I think it does a good job of portraying that.
Okay. The next note I had was about the conversation between Jon and Ygritte about loyalty before they climb up the wall, and it's sort of to point out that Ygritte could see right through Jon. Like, she could see that he was only, like, trying to survive. He was making every play he could to survive, and she said, you know, I understand that, but from this point forward, like, fuck them, like, fuck the King of the North, fuck the wall, fuck the king, like, just, like, you just need to be loyal to me. Like, because she understands that he's at a crisis of faith as to, like, especially when he's talking about attacking King's Land or Castle Black and providing information. Like, everyone can see that he's really uncomfortable giving this information because every time he gives more details, it's just he feels like he's betraying them one step further. And at this point, all he's done is kill the Corn Halfhand. But every time he gives more details, he knows he's leading to the deaths of all these people at Castle Black. And she eager to just see through this and is like, as long as you're loyal to me, like, once we get, you know, south of the wall, like, you just need to be loyal to me. Like, that's all that matters. So, anyway.
Yeah, I think I like the line where she puts it well, because she points out, she said that, you know, Mance Rayder doesn't care if I live or die. The Night's Watch doesn't care if you live or die. We're just soldiers, and there's more of us to pick up when we've fallen. So we'll be loyal to each other. And it was a really interesting way of putting it, because Jon clearly does have, I mean, does he have feelings for her? Has he gone farther in this? Is it all a ruse, or is he there and in it too deep? I think it's mixed.
Yeah, I think I think the conversation between them is Ygritte knows that he's conflicted about a lot of things, but she doesn't think he's conflicted about his feelings for her. Like, let's start with what you're not conflicted about. Like, you had a good time, I had a good time, like, and you're generally you're a genuinely nice, kind man, and like let's go steady, basically, in the old 50s terminology. Like, this wasn't a one-time thing. Like, I think I want to stick this out. So let's start from there. Let's move forward from that point. So that's how I thought it was a real good scene, and I don't remember it. And those, I feel like, on a rewatch are the best scenes, are the scenes that you don't remember, but they're, like, so character driven. Any other thoughts on that? Otherwise, I'll move to my more Jon and E. Then they climb the wall, and, like, another character building scene is that, like, they were gonna cut him, like, sort of proving Ygritte's point that, like, they don't care about it. They were gonna cut her loose, like, and she was well liked by this other guy. Like, I think it was implied that the guy that cut her loose was in love with her and felt really jealous of Jon, but, like, was willing to just throw them off the side of a cliff. And the big burly dude at the top,
Tormund,
he actually was willing to fight it out. Like, Tormund has some loyalty. Like, he was not gonna, like, throw. He says he likes Jon, but I will kill you if you screw us over. But he hasn't given up on him yet. Like, and then the last sort of note on that plot line throughout the episode is they get to the top and they kiss. And that was the scene where I mentioned previously, like, where there was pretty good cinematography, because it, in the story that Ygritte says, she, like, that's her dream. She can't even imagine what the top of the wall looks like. Like, and then the last scene of the episode is like them showing, and it's the backdrop of the wall is south of the wall. It's not north of the wall. So for Ygritte, it's the first time she's seen south of the wall, and it looks pretty green and lush compared to climbing a giant white ice hill. Like, So I thought that was pretty good cinematography to sort of capture the moment of how excited they are to be alive, be at the top of the hill, and I don't think it covers at any point like them climbing back down the other side, or if they like have another elevator like they do at Castle Black. But anyway, Steven?
I was just going to agree that I really did like the cinematography, like you were saying. As they get to the top, they start looking out, and it's a cool moment. It's really neat, and it is played well, I guess. I made this comment to Amanda when we were watching it together as well, though, and it was, holy crap, does the green start real quick after the snow ends? It's just like bang, bang, right there. And I get why they did it, to make it look, obviously there's a huge difference. It was just really funny to look at, just like, so snow stops here, and that's where you can start growing grapes.
That I didn't even think about that. Like, it is very much not a poor writing, but just very interesting, like background choices. That it looks like it's near King's Landing.
Yeah,
but maybe that's a illusion. Maybe that's how Ygritte sees south of the wall. Huh?
Ooh.
I would probably say it's more of just there's a lot of land that's considered the north, so what you're seeing is still the northern territory. Really, it's you probably don't even see out past the north there from up on top of the wall.
Where is it implied that they're climbing? They're not climbing by Castle Black, and they're not climbing by Eastwatch by the sea.
Somewhere in between the two.
Yeah, I feel like
Between
this
the
is
castles.
a general feedback that's not even a spoiler, is that like geography north of the wall is never very well covered, because in the opening scene, the only real good geographical map, it ends at Castle Black, and then it never goes past the wall at Castle Black to give a good understanding of where. Yeah, except for I think there's like one point there's something that's shown, but yeah.
It kind of makes sense that they do that, though, because I mean, people don't venture past the wall, so it's kind of cool. And we're seeing this all from as we want to talk about who we're seeing us from. It's the Westeros opinion that we're seeing it from,
Civilized world.
and so you're never going to know what's past the wall. I agree with you, though. It's
Anyway, the last note I had was going back to the conversation between the two gentlemen in the throne room. Is that they said it was said that the throne is made of 1,000 swords, and I do remember that in the book, like the Iron Throne is literally a mound. It's so much melted metal that it's a hill that the person sits on top of. Whereas in the show, it's a chair. It's a very grandiose chair of melted swords, but they say like less than 200 swords. Like, and I thought that was an interesting line, because I think that's them acknowledging that it's not as cool as it should be. It should be much bigger and much more badass. Anyway, Amanda?
I actually I liked that, because I felt like it was the writer's way of acknowledging that they are not being true to the book in this case. It's supposed to have stairs. It's supposed to be 1,000 swords melted together, and it's really hard to climb to the top and sit there and perch there. And that is not what the one in the show looks like, even though the one in the show looks pretty cool. Yet I thought they were really clever to take that into a way that they can make it into a conversation between these two characters.
And that, I guess, as I talked about previously about warming up into a conversation, that was a good warm up into a conversation, is like talking about the Iron Throne. Like, anyway, I thought that was my last note about this episode. Was so,
All
Tyler, back to you.
It's over to Amanda now.
Melisandre appears up to Thoros of Myr and to Beric Dondarrion, where we mentioned that, and she, I do remember the first time watching this, like, because Melisandre just seems She just knows everything. She's got all this power. I was scared of her when I first was watching the show. And now, even still now, like seeing her shocked face when she realizes Beric Dondarrion has come back 6 times. She, of all people, is surprised by this. And she even says, this is not possible. And she asks him, doesn't she? Like, you've been to the other side? And Beric says, the other side? There's no other side.
That is, I loved that part. It almost doesn't play anything into actual like events in the world, but it's just this really cool world building effect of what is really behind like the Red Woman, what is really behind their theology. He comes back from death and she's like, oh well, what's it like over there? Oh, there's nothing. It's black. And it's just like you see that the shock on her face, and maybe they describe this other places and I might have missed it. I'm over the moon about that part. It was really cool. It's really neat to kind of get a perspective on not just the mystic, I can set my sword on fire, I can bring you back to life, or I can have a smoke baby. What is after all of this? It's neat.
I think, yeah, the Red Woman, literally, Melisandre asked the question because she is truly intrigued. Like, like, what is the afterlife like? And he's like, it's just dark. And then I come back to life, and she's like, oh, that's weird. Didn't know that. And I think that was just, yeah, it was a real cool conversation because, yeah, you do sense that, like, Melisandre thinks she knows everything about the Red God, and the conversation I've misnamed him. Anyway, knows everything about their God, and she even goes in the conversation kind of belittling him about like how he was sent to Westeros to convert the king to like the Red God, and he failed. And he's like, yeah, I didn't even give a shit. Like, yeah, I just sort of played the part of the crazy, like, priest, and just, like, I played my part in the theater of, like, religion. And it just, like, and it was just such a, it was an interesting conversation because, yeah, like, she just is realizing that she doesn't know nearly enough about the powers that can be done, like, with the, that can be done, and she doesn't even believe that he's deserving of the power to resurrect someone. So, anyway, that's all I had. Back to you, Amanda.
The other note I had was about, conversation between Tyrion and Cersei after Tywin's handed down the decision about you're each going to marry, this is what's going to happen. His tone does not brook any conversation. This is what's happening. You're my kids. You're going to do it. Like, that is he has this power. Tyrion and Cersei are so often at odds, and yet they're sitting here both in their own mutual misery. And Tyrion even says it's hard to know who's getting the worst part of this arrangement. Cersei mentions at one point, father doesn't discriminate, which is, I don't think is true. Definitely he discriminates, not about his children's happiness. He definitely discriminates against Tyrion way more than the others. But yeah, he doesn't care about Cersei's happiness either because he figures it's for the family. On to Gary.
I was going to point out there's kind of a conversation that's had where Tyrion's trying to figure out if Cersei was the one who tried to have him killed. And for the second time, those two are interacting, and Tyrion thinks that Cersei did terrible things. The first time was that the guards killed all of Robert Baratheon's bastards, and she's like, oh, and Tyrion's like, oh crap, you didn't do that? Yeah. He did that? And then the second time was like, oh crap, like, I just assumed you wanted to kill me. Apparently Joffrey wants to kill me that bad. So, should I still be worried? And she's like, yes, you should be. And that's where it just leaves it. It's like, okay.
I like the point that she makes there as well he makes there as well. Like, Joffrey's stupid. He could have had me poisoned. He could have done this. He could have done that. No, he chooses one of the king's guard in full front of a whole bunch of people to come at me. Your son is an idiot. You gotta, like, what are we gonna do about this? And she's like, I don't know. Man, I don't know.
He
Yeah,
doesn't deny it.
he acknowledges that he's happy to be alive, but he's also just sort of, as a gamesmanship, he's disappointed that like Joffrey couldn't do better. Like, try harder. Like, there's so many better ways to do this. And anyway, that's what I read it. Is like, he's happy he's alive, but he's just disappointed that like Joffrey is not gonna win it if he tries again, like on this somebody else, because he just doesn't have game.
Oh, I almost read it. I read it slightly differently. I read it as he's not so much afraid for himself, or he's not upset that, you know, Joffrey doesn't have game. He's kind of afraid for the future of this, you know, country, quote unquote, or the family. If this kid who's leading him is such a dunce, like, what is going to happen to the family if your kid, the leader of this family's for the generations, can't do the simplest thing, like poison his gimpy uncle?
Yeah.
All right. Do you have anything else, Amanda?
One last little note. Arya, everywhere she goes, seems to find somebody who gives her some real good random advice about some kind of fighting, I swear. She had her sword master, she had Jaqen. Now she's got this guy with, I don't remember his name, the guy with that shoots the arrows.
Archer.
Archer, yes. And he's telling her, like, yeah, you're good, but you're not as good as you think you are. Like, you took your sweet time. Just shoot. You need to know where to aim. You're taking your time. You're not going to win. Fascinating how she always seems to find someone who can teach her the next little interesting skill everywhere she goes.
Or even kind of just remind her, too, that she doesn't know everything like she thinks she does a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Even coming from a background where she would not have been trained in that as a girl, but however, she definitely had access to some of the knowledge as they were brothers.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, anything else from anyone here? Do you have one thing, Gary?
One more thing. I realized that we never talked about the hero of the revolution.
That was going to be my final point here. Yep.
The hero of the revolution. Who, at this point, I can still call the hero of the revolution because we know he's not a Umber. He's not a Car Stark. So we don't know who he is. They know that they've confirmed that they're in the north, or he's a liar. And the scene ends with him like, you're either going to guess right or you're going to beg me to cut off your finger. And Theon did. He begged, just cut off my finger already. And that is crazy.
We may not know his name, Gary, but I think we know a decent amount about him already.
You also get the fantastic line. If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.
Yep.
Just the best
Foreshadowing?
line.
I don't know. They haven't, that actually, ironically speaking of the hero evolution, he asked the question, do you know why I'm doing this? And you still don't know his motives yet. So he still could be the hero of the revolution. I stand firm on that.
True. Gary has a good point, guys. I think we have to defer to him on this, and I think the hero of the revolution must remain his title.
I'll probably forget his name long after this.
He will forever be known as the hero of the revolution long after his name is lost to the time.
Yes.
All right. Well, that sounds like it's going to conclude it then for us here for this episode today. For next time, we will be watching episode 7 and 8. Episode 7 is The Bear and the Maiden Fair, and episode 8 is Second Sons. All right, well, thanks everybody for listening. Have a good one.
Bye.
Hi, thanks.
Bye.